Welcome back. Well, guys, this is where things take a lovely little turn. Like I said in the previous video, I wanted to change things up a bit. I wanted to go back to my roots. I still wanted to do certain things with you guys, but I wanted to be, I wanted to do videos and be real with y'all. And not fully give my opinion, but give my opinion. And okay, I am one of those podcast people that I don't respond to comments like that. If they're negative, I don't entertain any of that. I don't entertain people's warped opinions. If I consider it warped, you have the right to think how you think, feel how you feel, believe what you believe in. But that doesn't mean I have to subscribe to any of your stuff, just like you don't have to subscribe to mine. So I just live in a world where we equally can think differently and not have to belittle, berate, or hate one another, right? So with that being said, this ain't that, and I ain't them. First topic that I want to discuss this first video is just so initially I was going to do it on a person. I might do that later, but I just want to talk about trauma. Trauma dump. Let's trauma dump. Not trauma dump. I'm not going to tell y'all. I mean, I've told y'all my traumas before. I might get into some conversations, but I really want to talk about how y'all, and I say that collectively to the world out there, to anybody who comes across this video, how do y'all sit and feel comfortable with yourself saying that somebody's trauma is not real, is not valid, um, because they didn't say it when it happened, they didn't do it in the time frame that you believe they should have done it, or because you didn't hear about it, or because you went through similar trauma and you didn't respond the same way. Make it make sense for me, because it don't make sense. And I understand that common sense ain't common, but common sense just ain't happening. It ain't common at all. Y'all just ain't got it. How does it make sense? So, if I was to tell y'all that I was molested by somebody who technically should have been like a stepfather, because they've been in my life since I was 6 months, um, and that when I was 8, 9, I was molested, and then nothing happened. Something happened, okay? Because I ain't gonna go into the full detail. It was told eventually. There was a discussion about it, but nothing happened. So after that, it was silence, right? So I didn't bring it back up. Nobody else brought it back up. And folks just went on and lived their life. Well, what if I also told you that when I was 12, just a few short years later, my brother died? And that was a very traumatic experience. So, what happened was that molestation trauma came back. And then that's when I actually remembered that I had been molested when my brother died. Okay. So then this is still not talked about, because I'm not even sure if I'm really remembering something correctly, or if my mind is just so trauma filled with my brother's death at such a young age that I done concocted this crap. And it took 2 years for me to be confirmed and know this happened to you. Adults knew, nothing was done. To another, and I moved out the house when I was 16. So this is when the realization that no, this has actually happened. When I graduated high school at 16, I went to college. Okay. So I get to college and I tell somebody, because I mean, I was talking to this guy and I kind of wanted him to know all the aspects of, what was going on mentally with me. And in the midst of being 16 in college, I was raped by somebody in my dorms. Now, yes, it was rape, but he did not, and I hate to describe it like that, but I like to really have the full story. Um, it was a matter of me looking at him and saying, "So are you going to rape me?" And he looked at me and said, "No." Okay, so yeah. And he left. Now, because he started, I say rape. Um, and it still is that because a guy doesn't have to finish or whatever for it to be considered rape. Um, that situation went well. It didn't go anywhere because I didn't necessarily want to press charges because in that very moment, the only thing I could think of was having to come back to where I used to live to be in a house with someone who also violated me when I was a child. I would rather have took being in college with somebody who violated me than to go back home to be violated, right? So that situation, nobody knew about that situation except the people that was involved that I had to tell. Um, Simply because I had to tell my boyfriend at the time, who was also an RA at the school, and technically, I guess I put his job on the line because something like that happened, and he went and told his other people, and then they wanted, but I had to completely like shut it down in order to not, because they didn't understand, they didn't know that I felt like my trauma that I experienced as a child was worse than the trauma I experienced at 16. Nobody knew about that trauma that I experienced as a child in college. I didn't tell them that. My family didn't know about either until maybe 15, 20 years later. A lot of people still don't know who come in my life about traumas, whether they were friends or not, period. So, how do we find it within ourselves, in our bodies, in our words to speak on other people's trauma, on other, especially if you've been through trauma, right? Because we all handle trauma differently. Some of us don't even remember we've experienced certain traumas when we did. And then, even if we do, we handle them differently. Some people don't handle them at all. Some people lose their minds when they try to deal with that trauma. Some people deal with it and keep it moving. Kudos to everybody in those situations. And because everybody handles things differently. So who are you to say that because Cassie didn't come out and say that Diddy was beating her ass way back then, that it wasn't real? You only agreed with it once the video came out. Who's to say that she wasn't sexually violated by the same man that beat her? Who's to say that she wasn't sexually violated by somebody else in his camp? You cannot say that because you weren't there. You're not the person that it happened to. You're not the person that was a part of the story. You weren't there. You don't have the right to speak on somebody else's situation, trauma, or pain. Just like they don't have the right to speak on yours. You can't say that Krishan waited. Oh, it happened to her when she was 7, or her sister, they were kids too. Regardless if they were kids or not, trauma is trauma. And if we're going to look at that, what happened to the sister for her to want to do that to her little sister? Let's look at it for the full spectrum. Trauma is trauma, and trauma begets trauma if you don't know how to work it out within yourself. You're going to work it out on somebody else, and it's not ever going to be in a good way, right? Who are you to say that her trauma is not valid? Who are you to say that somebody is clout chasing because their trauma is now being exposed? There's been plenty of people who spoke about things in the past that nobody listened to. When I was 8, 9 and I talked about being molested, nobody listened to me then. Nobody fought for me then. Okay? And I, just like some of y'all, because y'all do it whether it's to celebrities, and I use air marks because they're regular human beings, another video. But to regular people, y'all do it all the time. Who are you to say when somebody should come out with their trauma, when somebody has healed and able to deal with it? Some people ain't never got to that place where they can speak about things that happened to them, which is why y'all still got generational traumas and shit that y'all trying to break now. You can't break the curses because y'all ain't talking about it. You ain't being real about it. Your great grandma was probably raped by this person and that person, daddy, cousin, brother, uncle, master, whoever. But they're too afraid, too ashamed to talk about it because of some people like y'all out here who always got an opinion about somebody else's pain. And it's not to say that people ain't out here clout chasing for different things, but don't think that everything is a clout chase, and don't think because they didn't do it when you think they should have that it's not real. Especially with Diddy's situation, with Cassie's situation. How many people could have possibly been abused by this guy or whatever, by anybody, and because they are a certain stature, have a certain amount of power, have certain type of stance in the community, whether it's in the black community, Hollywood, your actual real community, New York or Miami or Georgia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, because they got some type of pull that your life is not in danger. Hello, did we not hear about Kid Cudi riding a bike for like 2 years because his car got blew up allegedly by Sean Combs over Cassie? Yeah, I would be afraid to come out too and say this person was abusing me physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally, because I just might end up dead, right? And that's, take out the celebrities. How many women come out and say, oh, I've been abused, I'm trying to get away from this person, and they don't make it out? How many people have to keep their mouths closed just to sneak out of a situation like that so they can make it out alive, so their kids can make it out alive? How many women have told y'all these people are doing absolutely, or guys have told y'all these people are doing absolutely horrendous things to them? And then y'all laughing, kiki, gagayans, oh, you should leave. And they have tried to leave. You don't know the ins and outs. And then they wind up on your newsfeed as a rip post. Okay? We saw a couple of months ago, a lady went for a divorce and this man shot her dead in the court parking lot. Why are we so quick to victim blame and we not quick to abuser shame? It doesn't make sense to me. You don't get to tell us. You don't get to tell them. You don't get to decide when someone comes out and says, hey, this happened to me and I'm in a place now where I can release this information without it weighing down on me, without me wanting to take my life, without me wanting to shed a tear, with me having the ability to stand tall and say, you know what? It happened to me, but it also happened for me to give other people the ability to be themselves, to speak up about their injustices, to understand that they too can make it out of this as well, that they too can survive whatever it is that they have been thrust into, that has been thrust upon them. Why are we so quick to blame the victim, to call them a clout chaser, to say they're looking for this or this? They should have sympathy for their traumas. They should be looked at and say, dang, this happened to you. I'm sorry this happened to you. Not why'd you wait this long? Well, if this happened to me, so I know I told immediately. Well, okay, other people I'm pretty sure told immediately too, and nothing happened for them. Kudos for someone believing you. Kudos that somebody listened to you. Kudos that you were saved. Kudos for you. But just because your situation went like that, doesn't mean everybody's situation is going to go like that. And that's crazy to denounce somebody else's trauma just because you experienced something different. Is it okay if we denounce your trauma? That didn't happen to you because you're too well adjusted. You're too trusting. You can easily, well, how could it be that they did that to you, but you're still around them? Well, hey, some of us had no choice. I had to be around my abuser for 8 years. 8 years. I got out because I chose to graduate early. I chose to work hard in school and to double up classes so I could graduate early. So I can get out the house at 16. Some people run away and end up on the streets, end up in far worse situations because they're trying to survive. And I don't fault them for that. We all have different lives, different resources available to us. Some don't have resources at all. I don't fault them for that. I don't fault them for waiting 20 years to come out with their abuse. I don't fault them for 30 years. I don't fault them for waiting 2 weeks. I don't fault them for telling that very moment. Like Kenneth Petty's, who Nicki Minaj's husband, Kenneth Petty, who was accused of raping a girl when they were teenagers. He was a year older than her. And in his arrest, he said, oh, they used to date, they did a duh. He's been accused of this stuff before. She told immediately. He was investigated immediately. He was arrested at the house, still with the same stuff. His DNA was found. Everything was found immediately, right? She was threatened, and she was made to feel uncomfortable with testifying about this. She wanted to drop it out of fear, which a lot of victims get threatened to let things go out of fear for their life, their family's life, their safety. For years later to come out and then nobody believes her. She has to go through the same type of emotion she felt as a kid, even though it was proven back then that he did do it. And that wasn't his first instance. And then didn't he have like something like attempted murder or something like that, allegedly, or something like that. Victims can't even be victims anymore. And what world do we live in? Victims are blamed for their abuse. Victims are not believed. And then when the truth does come out in a lot of these circumstances, it's still a victim shaming situation. Like when the video with Cassie finally came out. Oh, he did, or she must have did. I don't care what anybody does. Do they deserve to be kicked, dragged? In this circumstance, did he deserve exactly what he gave? If y'all want to put it like that, did he deserve to be kicked, dragged down the hallway? I can't say for sure did he did everything everybody's accusing him of. But what I can say is he lied about not doing anything to Cassie. He said he did nothing. He lied. Point blank, period. He lied, right? The video comes out that he abused Cassie. That's the only thing I need to see. In that case, you lied. You are a liar. You are an abuser. You are a victim blamer, shamer. And all of you right along with him, just on stick to the facts, just on this situation, are the same. And I pity your daughters. I pity your mothers who probably went through it. I pity your grandmothers, your great grandmothers, your aunties, your uncles, your cousins who went through it, who may go through it, and who are going to look at you and second guess if they can even trust you with the deepest depths of their pain because they seen how you reacted to other people's trauma. They seen they can't trust you with somebody else's. They can't trust you with theirs. And that's a sad thing in this world. That the people that you should be able to turn to, you can't. You can't trust people. And it's even sadder that you have strangers, which you're all entitled to your opinions, but you have strangers speaking and quoting their opinions on your life as if it's fact. And I think that's outrageous. And I think that's utter bullshit. So please let this be the stop to your victim shaming, blaming, your timeline on when somebody should address their trauma, how their trauma went for them, how they need to heal and grow through their trauma. Because how you did it ain't how the next person gonna do it. And the same thing you survived through, the next person may not be able to survive through. And the same thing they survived through, you may not be able to survive through. So you just might need to think about that before you open up your mouth and speak on something that you have no knowledge of or no inkling of or no parts in. Because whether or not you went through something like them, similar, your situation, their situations are not the same and will never be the same. Because you ain't them and they ain't you. Just remember that the next time you put your mouth on somebody else. Okay. See, now y'all had me snap for a second. But that's all. I hope this video reaches whoever it needs to reach. I hope anybody out there who has ever been a victim understands that I sympathize, empathize with you. I am you. I don't fault you. And if anybody has ever made you feel like you're at fault for something that has happened to you that was out of your control, I apologize. Because they never will, but I will. I apologize. If you ever been shamed for coming out and speaking your truth, I apologize. They don't know what they do. They know not what they do. Even if they've been through it, they know not. Because anybody in their right mind who has been through something knows not to speak on the next person's pain. Because you know how it felt when other people spoke on yours. Okay? Just keep that into consideration. We know common sense ain't common, so we're going to keep searching for it. All right. Y'all have y'all a good one.